everyone to the 1% Better podcast, where everyday Joes, investor and business people get 1% better every day. And we have my good friend, Mr. Dan, on our podcast today. Dan, thanks for being here.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Sam. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm super excited, super pumped. I know it took a little while to set this all up, so awesome. And I'm
getting married kind of threw a wrench in things. Right?
Yeah, it did, didn't it? It did, for sure. So, just starting out, Dan, tell the people who you are, your story, walk us through kind of from the beginning, business and personal, wherever you want to take it, to now. So,
very good.
Love to hear your story.
All right, Dan Siegfried. I currently work with Farm Bureau Financial Services as a financial advisor and insurance agent. Started that career 31 years ago now, when I was 12. Just kidding. Born and raised in Pennsylvania, a little town called Emmaus, north of Philadelphia. So I'm all things sports-wise, Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, Phillies. So spent my first years there, moved to Tennessee when I was in my early 20s. Started the insurance business down there as a result of a personal family friend who just kept harassing me and saying I should get in this business, I'd be good at it. I owned other businesses, property maintenance business that I'd started from scratch. And the company I was working for at the time tapped me on the shoulder after 5 years of being in the business and said, hey, you should move to Iowa and you can take over part of the state and manage and teach people to do what you've been doing.
Yeah.
So I had to pull out a map and find out where Iowa was. Loaded up to U-Haul, literally moved 1,000 miles to a place I didn't know a single soul. And found out later that nobody had ever survived more than 2 years in that role in the state of Iowa for that company.
Wow.
But 17 years later, they changed the model from a corporate level and bought me out. And that's when I made a transition over to Farm Bureau about 7 years ago.
Wow. What's the biggest difference from your previous company to Farm Bureau that you enjoy, or maybe a new perspective when it came to switching after being there for 17 years?
Yeah, it was 23 years total.
Okay.
With the other company, and the biggest difference I'd say, Sam, is that I worked with Farmers Insurance, so a major brand, top 3 in the country, but they were based out of LA, and Iowa was a flyover state, and so that's why nobody succeeded here, was because there was no financial support. And this is, people think it's a joke now because Farmers advertises quite a lot on TV with Professor Burke.
Yeah.
But when I first started, they had one commercial per year, and it was during the Rose Bowl.
Oh, wow.
And their whole premise was you market grassroots. And so literally in Tennessee, which was an expansion state for them at the time, you had to tell people who you were and then explain what you were with a large company. And so it was it really taught me early on to be involved in the community and to be genuinely involved, not just because I want to put my name on a list. I had to show up, be present, be active, and that worked. So the change to Farm Bureau is the home office is in West Des Moines, and it's a player in the state of Iowa. So it's not a flyover state. No, it's a
bread and butter almost.
Yeah, it is, and they're a political powerhouse in the state, the federation, and it's night and day when it comes to that. I can get in my car and drive to the home office and talk to somebody eyeball to eyeball, go get a cup of coffee, versus I had a great relationship at Farmers. I was involved in a lot of the committees and planning processes with the senior management, so I was flying to LA to be involved in those things, but it's just as a different field. Farm Bureau does a great job of legitimately being involved in every county and every community across the state of Iowa.
For sure. I want to take a step back a little bit from I've never asked you this, from moving from Pennsylvania to Tennessee to Iowa. What stage, I guess, were you married when you were in Pennsylvania?
No, got married in Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Yes.
And so your family's in Pennsylvania.
So my mom, all my grandparents, my grandparents, my grandfather and father and mother all graduated from the same high school I did.
Yeah.
And so we were all from right there. And my grandparents, my grandfather lived to be 94, and so that was our main reason to go back to Pennsylvania. But when I moved to Tennessee about 3.5 years later, my parents followed me down there.
Oh, okay.
And so they live in Tennessee. They never followed me to Iowa.
Couldn't get them over here.
No. There was a chance. There was a time, maybe my dad's going to be 86 soon. My mom's 82. Still living independently. a great life.
Yeah.
But there was a time, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, they thought about coming out this way, but I think the winters spooked them.
Yeah.
My dad had flashbacks to winters in Pennsylvania, and so they never made the trip. And yeah, so it was a big move to come out here.
Yeah.
And it all started as funny because my business was doing great. That's why they approached me and said, "Why don't you close this shop down and move out here and just tell people to do what you're doing?"
Yeah.
And I went to lunch. It's funny to say this. I went to lunch with a buddy of mine who just graduated from the University of Tennessee as an architect. And so Jeremy is a guy who's 25, 24 years old.
Mm-hmm.
No kids, no wife, living, just the life.
Yeah.
And we went to lunch, and I'm telling Jeremy, I said, they want me to move to Iowa, and this and that. And I said, I've done the Ben Franklin thing where it's pros and cons, and they even out. As he's choking down his sandwich, he just looks up and says, "What's the more bold thing to do?" And I said, "Well, clearly, move to a state I don't know anything about, and do something I've never done." And he said, "Okay, sounds like that's what you should do."
Yeah.
And he said, "Could you come back to Tennessee in a year or two if it didn't work out and start all over?" And I said, "Oh, for sure." And he said, "Well, sounds like you need to move."
Yeah.
I went home, and 2 days later, somebody knocked on my front door and said, "Would you consider selling your house?"
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't on the market. I hadn't talked to a real estate agent. And it was somebody, because it wasn't far, we lived in a cul-de-sac at the foot of the Cherokee National Forest, and it wasn't far from the VA or the university.
Yeah.
And the guy was moving there. His wife did some nursing thing at the VA, and he said they were just shopping around looking for houses that were places they wanted to live. And I just looked at him and I said, "I don't know, maybe."
Yeah.
And then he said, if he threw out a number, which is more than I was thinking I would ask for it. He said, "If we paid you cash, could you be out in 60 days?"
This was the guy that wanted to buy it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no realtor involved
No
or anything
realtor,
at this
that's
point.
the guy,
Yeah.
okay.
He just was the guy. He said,
So he really wanted to live there.
yeah, he wanted the house. And so I was like, I'm not sure. I don't know where I'd go. And I'm thinking, I know where I'd go.
Yeah.
I hadn't accepted any positions or looked at anything. And so we talked about it, and I thought, I gotta sell the house anyway. If the guy made an offer, even if I'm gonna stay in town, I'm gonna sell the house and move into another house. So that was like the snowball. Things like the stars were lining up.
Yeah.
And we started to think, maybe this is something we should do.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know if you're religious or not, but that's,
Yeah.
in my
It was like
perspective,
signs.
that's God's timing. Like, hey,
This is the way.
you need to get your butt to Iowa one way or another.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I had a similar story to that. I won't tell you the whole thing, but when I was getting into the real estate business, I had already worked with Colin a couple times and bought a couple houses. And I was like, I'll just call him and see what he thinks about me getting my real estate license. Like, he's the only guy I knew in real estate. And he told me, he goes, "Yeah, I actually just listed a job a week ago for the position."
Boom.
And I was like, "Oh, I gotta do this now." And
Yeah.
that was like the one thing it took to like get me over the hump.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, that lines up. And then had my house rented out in Carroll within 2 weeks, and I was like, okay, now what's holding me back here?
Right.
Like, let's move and let's do it.
Isn't it something? I think it's one thing I've learned throughout my career is, and especially now, there's information everywhere. Nobody lacks information.
Yeah.
You want to know how to take care of your body, you can find the information.
Mm-hmm.
It's not information, it's action. And most people stutter or stumble on the action part because they don't have courage.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that to be demeaning. I don't have courage sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's just surrounding yourself with the right people who will interject a little bit of courage. I've joked with Jeremy through the years, like, he had no clue what it was like to have a couple kids and a wife and move 1,000 miles to do something he'd never done.
Yeah.
But he gave me a shot of courage just by saying, what's the more bold thing to do? He said, you're going to regret taking the safe path sometime in your future. Better to try, fail, and then try again. And it was miserably difficult at first because I didn't realize how tough it was going to be. But those are all things that hone your skills. I mean, failure was not, I had no plan B.
Yeah.
There was no, let's return and do something. It's burning the ships.
Yeah.
Let's go. We're going to make this go.
What were some of those skills or big things you learned about yourself making that big change? Because you're married now, you had a successful business already going, you had something that was safe. besides just the move and the logistics and, probably the struggles personally, what were some of the other things you learned about yourself?
Well, I had to learn so I went from being a producer
Yeah.
to being a coach.
So you were the sales agent.
I was the agent. Yeah,
Okay.
I started a scratch business. I had no clients.
You're out there hustling.
They jokingly throw you the phone book because there
Yeah.
was no do not call list back in the day, and so you could
There's not one right now either. Did you know that with the
No.
government shutdown?
Oh, that's right.
There's no
Call
do not
anybody.
I'm not saying to do that. But...
No, I think I might end up in trouble. Yeah, so it's like my schooling was I graduated I was a chef, and so it's like being the chef and then running the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Two different jobs,
Yep.
two different skill sets. And there's a mistake, and you read the E-Myth, and there's a mistake that people think I'm a good carpenter, I could be a good general.
Yeah.
And so I was honestly at that crossroads where I was an excellent producer.
Mm-hmm.
I knew how to build a team, support clients at that level. Now my client was agents. So I was a subcontractor for the company,
Mm-hmm.
and the people I worked with were subcontractors.
Yep.
So I had no control.
Yeah.
All I could do is create an environment of success, encourage them to reach their goals, and by doing so, reach mine. So it taught me empathy, how to manage without authority, because I didn't have the ability. I mean, yes, I guess you can say you can go in and make someone's life miserable, and so they quit and get rid of them that way. It's
Yeah.
not my style. I'm more of an encourager. Let's figure out what's working, and if it's not working, let's help you find the next thing, kind of a thing. So, and then it was also moving from the producer, and in any organization, it's true with Farm Bureau as well. That's the part that turns the lights on for everybody.
Yeah.
Now, when you move into the management position, you're noticeably closer to the fire because you're given directions from the corporate folks,
Yep.
and now your job's to execute in an arena you don't control. And so it's a weird kind of a dynamic to be able to get consistent production without fear,
Yeah.
by using growth and encouragement as the bait, if you will, to improve versus you better, you're going to get fired.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
More of like which is kind of a cliche word I feel like anymore, servant leader.
Yeah.
But like that was literally what you were doing.
100%. When I read the books, that's what I was like when Maxwell or somebody, you'd read.
Which was
different
probably
levels of
not as
leadership.
accepting concept back then.
No, most of my peers,
Really?
and the reason they failed in that role were more of I swear. I mean, it's if you've had the position, there's a tremendous amount of heat from the corporate side. They have to have results. They got to go to their board.
Mm-hmm.
They are all in the food chain, if you will, on the corporate side, and so they produce a tremendous amount of heat on you as the manager to get something done.
Okay.
And so the natural reaction is to go turn the heat on.
Yeah.
And just say, by God, I just got my butt handed to
Yeah.
me. But I never, so that was the most common style, was to go threaten, humiliate, intimidate salespeople, right? And tell them, I'll give you money if you do this. And I found out most people don't necessarily run for money. Money's an important part, but it's not usually in the top 10 of why people do things. And so you find out what's important to them and then help them get what they want. And I always got what I wanted.
For sure. So how many agents, you'd call them agents then, right?
Yeah.
How many agents were you in charge of or had at your peak?
My peak probably, I think it was 42, 43.
Wow.
And then they each had 2 or 3 staff people, so there was well over 100 staff people that they were paid by them.
Yeah.
And then I had 5 people on my staff.
Okay.
I had a recruiter, a life insurance consultant. I paid, one of my most key positions was I paid a business coach.
Okay.
Somebody that's all they did alongside me was, I figured if we build up the man or the woman,
Yeah.
then the rest of it takes care of themselves. They become better husbands, wives, community leaders, then they become better business owners,
Yeah.
better bosses for their staff. So it was really working on the person. And the insurance was a byproduct. The insurance is how they got paid.
Mm-hmm.
That's what generated the revenue, but that was not the goal, was to be the best insurance guy. It was to be the best man.
Can we dive into that a little more?
Sure.
That interests me. So you had 42 agents, all different producing levels,
Mhm.
probably.
Different ages,
Yeah,
different backgrounds.
ages, all of that. What were, I assume you had some structure set up on the day-to-day. Can we kind of go into that structure and like, hey, Monday we were doing a group meeting where we're going over sales training. Tuesday you're meeting with your business coach. Like what did that look like, or was it more of a personal level of like, hey, Johnny over here is crushing it. He only wants to meet monthly, and then I have Jimmy over here. He's just starting out. I got to meet with him every day.
100%. You just hit the nail on the head. I'm more of again, if I'm serving you, it's about you, not me. So I've never been a top-down. I will see you once a month in your office for 45 minutes. We will talk about these 5 documents. It's always been, what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
Like October right now, this time of year, I would be planning for next year with everybody, one-on-one in their office, with a very short 1-page, what are the key objectives that you want to achieve? I found by doing that, I could roll up all of their objectives from everybody. I could apply what I used to call a 25 to 30% BS factor, because sales guys are always going to overcommit. And I would still double my expectations from the company after doing it that way. And so it always remained about them.
Yeah.
If I just helped Jerry get what Jerry wanted, and Larry what Larry wanted, and Barb what she wanted.
Yeah.
Right? And so we set up our staff that way too, where if somebody was focusing on a current product line or they needed more help, they got it. And new people obviously need a whole lot more hand-holding.
Yeah.
But when I was dealing with someone new, my goal wasn't to teach them to do it my way. My goal was to create a framework of success and grow them to independence.
Yeah.
Because I said if they run through me, I become the choke point. I can't manage all the phone calls from 100 and some people.
Yeah.
I need to teach them how to connect with their resources. And so we had a staff meeting every Friday. I used to have different people in the office run the staff meeting each week. And they all had a part they were responsible for, a certain part of the business. And they would report out to the rest of us, and it was more Q&A. I met with every agent probably at least once a quarter. But, again, if somebody's, they needed me, they needed me.
Yeah.
So when they called me or texted me, I responded.
Yep.
I wasn't more about, I'm going to come see you when I need you kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think that's something I've, personally over the last couple years, I was kind of in that producer role. Like I was the agent out in the field, doing all the sales. I was the one going to all of our flip properties, seeing the flips, negotiating with the sellers, running the contractors, everything start to finish.
Right.
The finances to my first initial knock on the door with fixing up a rental or a flip. And now I've started to empower a team.
Right.
But then I'm thinking through of, okay, how can I be useful to this person now that they're 8 months into the job?
Right.
Because that's a lot different than when they're day one and didn't really
100%.
know anything about contracting.
And that's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't think you can take a cookie cutter approach to treating everybody the same. Like I'm going to pay everybody the same, or I'm going to reward everybody the same.
Yeah.
Some people like time off more than they like money.
Mm-hmm.
Some people want to be recognized. The example I used to use, and we used to use a company out of Canada. Everybody I hired, they went through a personality profile.
Yeah.
Everybody hired for my staff or to be an agent. Our vetting process to find new agents was completely different than most models. I had a co-sign for their financial support for the first couple of years, and so I was on the hook financially.
So they got a loan of some type.
Correct. It was a repayable loan. They could outrun it by production. We used to call it running the daylight. But if they didn't or they failed, I owed the money back to the company.
Oh shit.
So yeah, it was legit. So I wasn't just, can you use fog and mirror? Come on, I'm going to put you to work.
Yeah, because that's some people's approach. Just get as many people as we can.
Especially in our industry.
Yeah, see what mud sticks on the wall.
Correct. And our industry is notorious for it. Let's go get a bunch of people, put 100 people in a room. 2 of you are going to be here a year from now. We don't care.
Yeah.
Next 100. Mine was completely the opposite. I wanted to find 2 or 3 people a year at the most. Some years we did more than that. But it was about finding the right people, because I was interrupting their life.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was asking a husband or a wife to step away from a career and try something new, it was going to impact them and their families. So we had to be sure about it. So we used a tool, and it was a personality profile. And a simple thing it would say was like, it would say, Sam likes public recognition.
Okay.
And so, or Sam doesn't like public recognition. And I found that so simple, that if you like to be out in front on the stage and everybody high-fiving and whoop-whooting, and I don't do that, you're gonna think something's wrong and I don't like you and I don't want to. But if you don't like that and I pull you to the front of the stage, you're going to be embarrassed. And it's like,
Sure.
dude, just leave me alone. And so some of that stuff is so simple, but unless you know it and understand it, you'll find yourself treating the person incorrectly.
Yeah.
And it's counterproductive. And so, it sounds simple, but if you just get to know the person, meet them where they are, take them to where they want to go, it all works. And empowering your people like you're doing right now can feel crazy.
Yeah.
Because they're going to make mistakes.
For sure.
And you got to let them make mistakes.
I know.
And they're not going to do it as good as you.
No.
You have to let them do what they can do.
I feel like that this year has been the biggest thing I learned is just like letting go. And it sounds super easy just to let go. But when you're used to doing it all the time and you have your way of doing it that you think is right, and someone else's way could be different and that doesn't make it not right.
Correct.
But that's been difficult for me because now I think something's taking a little longer than I think I would do it.
Right. You didn't call him back yet?
Yeah.
Why didn't you call him? I would have called him.
Yeah. Or why is this, taking a week longer? What's going on with XYZ? But that's the only way to learn, and I think it does come with pain. And it does take a step back. When I mean pain, like you're gonna lose some money. Like everything's not going to be as efficient.
Yeah. And you do get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Because there's a real fine line between allowing someone the freedom to be independent and curious, and then also them taking advantage of you.
Yeah.
And I always think that's one of my weaknesses, has been, will be, at this point in my career. I'm probably not going to fix it. Is holding people accountable.
Yeah.
I've always struggled with that because I'm a believer in people.
Yeah.
And so I'll swallow their BS story far longer than I should. And unfortunately, when you have a team, that can actually impact the team.
Yeah.
Because the team only moves as fast as the slowest person. And if somebody starts getting away with it, people tend to modify their behavior to the lowest common denominator, and it has a negative effect on the team. I can logically go through all the reasons why I shouldn't do it, but when I'm in the blur of life and in the heat of the moment, I'm like, they're doing good enough, we'll let it go. So, but you're on the right path. Nobody succeeds alone.
Yeah.
You gotta have a team.
Yeah, I think for me, it's on the accountability thing. It's easier when it's like black and white for me personally, like, because I've done sales my whole life. Okay, like, why didn't you meet your call metric? Or like, why didn't you give these amount of offers? Or why didn't you talk to this amount of people? Like, that's white and black to me. Like, okay, you just didn't do the work.
Yeah, you're better at that than I am, honestly, because I can have those metrics, and usually when I'm hiring somebody, I have to have that in front of me, and I look them in the eye and say, I'm kind of a softie, so we have to have these clear boundaries. And if you're not producing at this level, we have to say goodbye to each other. Because I probably won't want to when we get to that point in our relationship. But so I understand that as a weakness, and it's something I have to actually plan ahead for by having metrics and things like that.
For sure. I think it's a little harder for me when it's like a different role outside of sales. That's maybe a little harder to track, like administration work. Is like, okay, you can account for these files getting pushed through or like somehow, but it's a little more difficult for me to keep clear metrics on that. And then so it's like, now I'm easier to believe their story.
Right.
And it's like, I've never done that work myself a lot and never really enjoyed it. So it's like, how do I know if they are slacking or they just need some time to figure it out?
Or does it matter if they're slacking? I've been kind of a renegade, not by today's standards, but back when I started, I've always been of the mindset that I just want people to get a job done. And my joke is, I don't care if you can get it done. If I'm paying you for 10 hours, you can get it done in 2. I don't care. I just need the job done. And that, I think people respond well to that freedom. Now, I've had people that I work with say that people abuse that, and I'm sure they do. But again, if I have the job done,
what's the alternative?
That's what I need.
Yeah.
Do I want to fire them and train somebody new?
Yeah. Or micromanage them?
No, you can't do that. I don't like to be micromanaged, and that's what the accountability part. When I think about accountability in a business setting, I think about micromanaging, and that's what makes me crazy. But there is a happy gray area in the middle that I tend to avoid, even when I shouldn't.
Yeah. That is a good point. Yeah, there is a middle ground, but I think it is like what we said earlier, different for different people.
Yep. If you find the right people, that business is easy. And it doesn't really get more simple than that. If you get the right people around you, it's almost like you're playing, and it just happens. If you don't have the right people, it's work.
For sure. What, kind of switching gears a little bit, what motivates Dan today? You know, you've kind of done a lot in your business career. What fires you up to keep going today?
Probably the same thing that started me on this journey decades ago. I owned other businesses, and my friend Ross, who kept in my ear, like, you should do this. I got licensed. I went to his training classes Monday nights from 6 to 9, 13 weeks in a row. Didn't do anything with it. But what I did find, Sam, is when I became a licensed insurance guy, is that I had really crappy insurance. I'd gotten married, started a business, had kids, bought a house, bought and sold several cars, and here I was running around with the state minimum of insurance required by the state of Tennessee. I had no idea what those numbers meant on the deck page.
Yeah.
And so that's what has always burned me and kept the fire going. Is I look out in the landscape, like if I'm sitting at an iCubs game or a Cyclones game, and I look at the audience. My wife tells me I'm weird when I do this, but I'll say, all these people, I don't know most of them. And I bet the majority of them have no idea what their insurance is and how their auto insurance impacts their 401k, or how their health insurance is tied into other parts of their living and their goals to be financially independent at some point in the future. I literally called my agent, who I had for 9 years. He'd never talked to me after he sold me the insurance. And that's what I thought everybody did. You know, you buy the insurance, see you later. I'll call you when I need you. And I said, hey, I got licensed. I'm an insurance guy now. And he says, oh, you want to come to work for me? And I laughed and said, no, I don't think so. I said, but I'm kind of shocked. I said, I have really crappy insurance.
Yeah.
I said, this is ridiculous. I had $10,000 of property coverage. So anytime I would have hit somebody, the company would have paid 10 grand. I was on hook for the rest of it. That was just a sample of how bad it was. And he just said, well, you can get more. You want me to raise it? Just cavalier, flip. And I said, no, it's okay. I'm going to take my business somewhere else.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, if you ever want to call us. He said, remember, you wanted cheap insurance when you came and saw me, so that's what I gave you. And so he completely flipped it around and made it my problem, because I was the uneducated consumer who, of course, asks for cheap insurance. That's what I want. Until I have an accident, then that's not what I want. And so I went to work, and even when I was as an agent, I tell my staff in our staff meetings, and as a manager, we make sales through education. So our job is to educate the consumer. This is how it works. Tell stories. This is how it would impact your life if this happened with what you currently have. And it's that process that I still do today. As I step back from the management role, almost 5 years ago now, back into the producer role, that's what I do. I talk to people every single day and help them understand how this works. I tell my staff all the time, if you don't ever have a claim, any insurance policy will do, because you're meeting your statutory obligations and your loan obligations. The minute you have a claim, all of a sudden, all of your decisions are at your feet. It's a contract. It's going to perform in a certain way. You've made a decision months or years prior, and if you haven't talked to your agent in a long time, it's time to get connected. We keep true to that promise, and we have annual reviews with every one of our clients, because our industry changes and their life changes. And so we just want to make sure everything's aligned. I'm not selling anything. I don't want to sell anything. I just want to say, here's what you got. Here's what's available. Let me know what you want to do. Call, text, or email anytime. So it's that kind of, it sounds simplistic, but I think I still make an impact.
They say, even like kind of on the sales side of it, like even you call someone today and they say they're not interested, they say everyone's life changes about every 3 to 6 months. You know, so I think that's great.
Yeah, we're definitely an intersection product.
Yeah.
We're not, if somebody is not struggling with their cost of their insurance or their relationship with their current company, why would they talk to me? Because I can't promise them I'm going to save them money. If somebody says, well, yeah, you can quote me if you can save me money. That's cool. The money's a byproduct. The money is you choose what you want, and then we plug it into the cash register, and here's what it costs. Unfortunately, the majority of society has been taught that you can go online, read for 5 minutes, and now you know everything an insurance guy would tell you. You think,
plug it into ChatGPT.
Correct. Right, exactly. I actually had somebody do that in town not long ago. They took my proposal and somebody else's and put them both into ChatGPT and said, what's the difference? And it came out with some really interesting differences that weren't true. I mean, they weren't true, but you know, that's why I think you need someone who understands your business. I'm not going to tell a doctor how to do their job. I'm going to have somebody I trust. I'm not going to tell you how much to charge for an Airbnb or how much a flip should be. That's what you do. So, you know, we're taught that you can go online, you can do a little bit of search, then you can drop down menus, pick, click, go. And again, if you don't have a claim, that's perfect. But if you ever do.
Do you think that's the biggest mistake you see at consumers or clients you work with, just being so uneducated still today?
And they don't, and I will routinely, when I'm doing my annual reviews, I will tell them, we'll go through things, and they'll say, well, I never heard this before. I'm thinking, I talked to you last year about it. And it's not because I don't expect them to. I say, by the time you hit your car in the parking lot, your phone's going to be rung for the 30 minutes we've talked. You're off to your next thing. You will have, your mind will empty of all that we talked about. All I want them to know is that I know them and I know insurance. And it's my job to align and connect the dots. And as long as they trust me in that relationship, we won. If they don't trust me, then they're going to be questioning, why did I do that? Those types of things. So I don't even expect people to remember it. I'm the nerd. I read an article in the Wall Street Journal and I immediately go to, oh God, I hope they had enough insurance. You know, nobody else thinks that. You know, they're just like, oh, that's a bad story.
What do you think is the most misunderstood thing about your industry overall? Because I feel like a bad stereotype, maybe.
I want to hear your perspective.
My perspective on insurance, it's like, and I've done all these roles, so I can say it, like used car salesman, which was my first job. Then you get a real estate guy. And then you probably have insurance, and then bankers, and then doctors and lawyers and everything else. On like everyone's perspective of that job.
I appreciate being a head of realtors. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true.
Maybe you're right there, Dan. You're right there.
That's the joke when I would be training people. And I almost didn't get into business for that. I actually told my buddy Ross, he was like, you've been licensed for a year now. Are you going to do anything with this, or should we just wash our hands? And I said, you know, dude, it's such a black eye in the industry, because the way I was treated, bought insurance, 9 years later, completely different life. Never talked to the guy, was what I thought everybody's experience was. And so my goal, my ambition from then till today remains changing that dynamic, becoming a true advisor, not by name, not by title, but by action. It's a verb, it's not a pronoun.
For sure.
Or a noun. That's the biggest disconnect. And you know, watch TV commercials today. Every insurance company saying, I can save you money, I can save you money. So the consumer's not the problem, it's the insurance companies who are continuing to beat that message that if I can save you $100, you should move to me. You don't realize you gave up all the protection that you really want after a claim.
Is $100 really worth it when you're...
It's $1,000. I've literally seen people save $1,000 or more dollars a year, and in one claim 7 years later give it all back. Because something's not covered. One small thing not covered, and they're like, what? And then the immediate reaction is to get online or go talk to their friends and say the insurance company screwed me. You know, I knew this was going to happen. They always screw us. And actually, you bought a contract. It's a contract. You're paying in advance saying, if this happens, we call it a trigger. If the policy's triggered, we agree to pay this way this much. And you're buying the this way this much all the time, and the trigger. And the simple example, there's a company, I don't know if they still do this, but a lot of us use a simple thing in commercial auto where we say, what's your radius of operation? Less than 50 miles, 50 miles. And so all of us use that for underwriting to charge, like we just get a picture of how far you drive. One company used it for insurance. So you drove 51 miles, your insurance stopped. Now the average agent or consumer would never know that. They would answer the question, how far do you drive? of 50 miles or less usually.
Yeah.
But then they get a job in Fort Dodge and they exceed that, their bubble of protection is gone.
I didn't know that.
Right. And nobody would unless you read the contract. And who's going to read their contract?
No.
So just, there's all kinds of examples like that. I don't think anybody should overpay. I don't round up my bill. I pay to the penny. So I'm not all about let's shuffle money to the insurance company. Our job is to keep your protection where it needs to be and your cost as low as possible.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sacrifice protection to save on cost, because when the claim happens, you're going to look me in the eye and say, what were you doing?
Yeah.
Why did you leave my butt hanging out on this particular thing?
Yeah.
And if I tell you, well, I was saving you money,
You're not gonna be
not so much, because I just had to write a big fat check. So.
Yeah. Well, I think me personally, like speed of payouts is a good thing that Farm Bureau does too. I feel like that's just something they're well known for, is paying out people pretty quickly.
Yep.
And that's another thing that maybe the other company is insuring you the same amount or same coverage, but what's it worth to you to get the money 2 weeks or a month earlier?
Yeah.
And
so that's a very common misconception too, that I've made my life's work, and I don't think I'm making a big dent in humanity.
1%.
Yeah. But
after this podcast, all the millions.
Here we go.
Yeah.
So the misconception that if I look at a deck page here and a deck page here, and the numbers are the same or better, that the coverage is the same. It's not true. The deck page, we call it a declarations page because it's declaring what's in the contract.
Okay.
Now, in the contract is what pays. That's what pays. So you can have, for instance, I could insure this house for $650,000. Company A, Company B does it for the exact same number, but in the contract, one of them is paying actual cash value versus replacement cost.
Okay.
One of them doesn't pay for wind and hail damage. The other one does.
Yep.
Now, when you're the consumer, and it doesn't seem fair, because the consumer is trained to look down here, well, it's the same coverage.
Yeah.
And they just move on and look at the bottom line premium. Well, I'm saving $1,200. Why wouldn't I go with this one? Because and maybe it is legitimately the same coverage, but the contract tells you that, not the declarations page. That's just like the fun, the cheat sheet. Companies can give away a lot on that page if they control or constrict the coverage in the contract. Okay. They can insure you for $1 million. That's why you ever wonder why travel insurance, when you buy, at least when I buy my airline tickets on American Express, they give me for $7, they give me $1 million of life insurance.
Yeah.
It's because it only counts if I die on that plane.
Yeah.
So they can give a big fat number of coverage with a very constricted definition of benefits.
Yeah.
Because there's almost no chance it's going to get paid out. So whenever grandma used to say, if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
Same thing in insurance. If somebody's giving you a lot of coverage and they're charging you very little, their definition of what's going to be covered in the contract is somehow tight.
Yeah, your spidey senses should probably be going on.
Yeah.
For sure. What do you think, briefly, we don't have to go down this rabbit hole overly too long.
Okay.
I feel like we could go super long on this, but
Let's go.
what's your thoughts on commercial these days? I know we've had a huge pendulum shift from, COVID, and not COVID, but just the derechos and everything else, and buildings that you used to be able to insure for a handful of thousands of dollars are now tens of thousands of dollars, and 1% on wind and hail, which on a couple $1 million is big money these days. Where do you think we're at with all that? Are we starting to shift back the other direction? Is it here to stay for a while? What are your thoughts?
I think we're going to find a new plateau.
Okay.
So I don't know that we're ever going to go back. So insurance is as an industry, collects more data than anything else. They're like banks. I mean, we have data on it. We could fill up a football stadium with 32-year-old males, non-smokers, and we can tell you how many of them are going to die next year. Because not which ones, but we know there's going to be 2.3 of them that are going to die. So they have statistics on everything. So the actuarial people should drive the company, right? Because they have the numbers, but they're always balanced by marketing people who are saying, we can't do that. We're going to get out of the market. We gotta keep our clients and yada, yada, yada. So there's always, I only say that because there's always going to be some company who will come in and try to buy the market.
Yeah.
The actuarial people are like, are you crazy? You can't sell it for that. And they'll say, watch it, we're going to make it up on volume. Yeah. And then, of course, the storm hits and they go out of business or they pull out of the state, which has happened in Iowa several times. the market has shifted dramatically. And again, I don't want to go down too much. I think you and I have been down this rabbit hole before,
Yeah.
one-on-one. But just a high level view, we all buy what's called reinsurance. And so that's an insurance market like Gen Re, and there's other international companies that insure insurance companies. So when the ratio hits, if it's an $800 million loss, the insurance company might pay 50 and reinsurance pays the rest. Well, the reinsurance markets have changed their pricing and what they cover dramatically in the last 2 years. So that $800 million loss might have to be totally eaten by the local company, and they pick up their attachment point is much higher.
Wow.
And so the state of Iowa and all states regulate, and they say for every dollar a premium insurance company has at risk, you have to have so much in your back pocket. Now you can physically have the capital, or you can have a relationship with a reinsurance company to agree to take it. So when reinsurance pulled back what they're going to pay, insurance company had to get more capital.
Gotcha.
And so that's why rates have gone up. They had to collect more capital to be solvent. And that's why a dozen companies went out of business in Iowa, because they just couldn't raise the capital needed because of the reinsurance changes. And that's not going to change. Reinsurance companies aren't going to go back to the old way.
Yeah.
They have dictated like cosmetic damage coverage, roof schedules for older roofs can't be put on as replacement cost anymore. They have to be looked at actual cash value. That wind hail deductible you mentioned. We used to do it per location. So you'd have a condo with 10 buildings, you'd have a $25,000 deductible or a 1% deductible.
Okay.
Reinsurance has said no, it has to be a per building deductible.
Oh.
So now you,
Interesting.
as a company, you're just like, okay, now we're going to go to per building, which is a significant shift, you know, in how the board at that particular condo has to look at it.
For sure.
So I don't see it returning.
And that's all governed by the U.S. government, right? They say you have to have X amount of much money in the bank. You have to have X amount of reinsurance.
They call it reserves.
Okay.
So you have to have for every dollar at risk, which is if I insure your house, that's $1. Those are dollars at risk. You have to have so much in your back pocket. That's the way I describe it. You can have the actual capital in your back pocket, or you can have capital plus reinsurance.
Okay.
And so when reinsurance says we're gonna account for less of that, then the company has to have more of the real greenback. And it is state run. That's the other confusing thing about insurance is there are some federal guidelines, and I'm not an attorney, but every state has their own Department of Insurance.
Okay.
So the policy I write in Iowa is different than the one in Nebraska. So when I'm licensed in 8 states to sell insurance, there's different quirks or endorsements or benefits. Like they could be a no-fault state, or it could be they can stack their med pay or their liability, and just nerdy terms, but they're all different, and that complexity limits entrance into the marketplace, which of course the insurance companies love because it's complex, and the startups have trouble getting in because you have to have 50 different things for 50 different states. An administration in the past tried to say we're going to federalize it, and that's always met with extreme resistance by the insurance people.
It would be easier to get in then.
Correct.
That's what you're saying.
Now the complexity causes confusion, and I used to do quite a bit of work in the startup community for an insurance accelerator, and it's interesting to watch people from around the world literally dump into Iowa to try to change things, and you could see by the bright eyes they had and the ideas, it legitimately would work. But then when you start trying to plug it into 50 different models with 50 different reporting requirements, you can imagine how quickly that just becomes like, how am I supposed to bootstrap this? You know, all of a sudden the VCs have to pony up more money, and the risk becomes much greater.
Now you're waiting a lot longer to get paid. And everything else.
Something has to change, Sam. I think you and I have had this conversation. We can't keep, the insurance industry can't keep dumping higher premiums on people. It's not a sustainable model. We can't, nobody can go to any state and just say arbitrarily we're going to raise rates. They have to show their books, and the Department of Insurance is in position to protect the consumer. So their job is to say, Farm Bureau wants to have, let's say, an 8% rate increase. They look at our books and say, yeah, that's justified by your returns. If they look at our books and say, you guys make money, you don't need more money, and they will say, no, you can't take a rate increase.
Interesting.
So Yeah, some states like California have like capped it and said you can't take more than X amount of rate increase no matter what happens because
Wow.
it's protecting the consumer. So it's a difficult environment for a company to operate in because they can only take 4% or 6% a year.
For sure. And it's true volume, you know. It's not like
It's money in, money out.
Yeah.
Claims paid versus premiums collected, commissions paid. What does it cost to keep the adjusters and the claims people employed and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. Cool. Big question for you, Dan.
Uh-oh.
If you had a blank check and 12 months off, what problem would you go solve?
I've done quite a bit of work. I worked with the March of Dimes for a number of years. They deal with premature births. It's one of those things. Our 4 kids were all healthy, no issues, but I was introduced to it years ago. And when I see the impact it has on families, when the happiest moments of their life, they're gonna have a baby, all of a sudden they're turned into a NICU situation where they're in there for 30 days or 60 days or 7 days or it just rocks people's world. And so to be able to, the March of Dimes is just one example, but they do a lot of work to prevent it and figure out what at the gene level is going on to cause an early birth and birth defects and things like that. So that's where I've spent a lot of my community time over. And when I was in Tennessee, I got involved and I just naturally poured over here. Not as active with it as much anymore. I still have really good friends that were in that space and families that were impacted that I'm so close to.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of things to try to fix.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's and that's part of my mind. I think is that I would have trouble probably settling on one thing. When I go to 1 Million Cups each week to listen to entrepreneurs and startups, I always get jazzed with what they're doing, and I'm like, I should get involved. And then next week it's like, I should get involved.
They have so much time.
Yeah, right. And so it's like I think if I was given that scenario, I would probably have to spend a little bit of time to truly get to my core and say what deserves my energy and my capital at this point to do it. Right now I'm mainly involved with my family. I'm just trying to get a couple grandkids. Parents, back then my parents are getting older, and so those types of issues, challenges that we love to be involved with in every way, but they do take your time and resources, and our goal is to help them remain independent and maintain dignity as long as possible as they go through the aging process. So that's another thing I think I'm passionate about, is trying to help people to foresee and then with some kind of control move through the various stages of life. Because when you're young like you are, that all seems so far away. And we all know things change in a minute. We're not fools. But there is a certain expectation of longevity that we probably have. And when people get to that point where they start needing assistance, financial, physical, it's good if they have things prepared.
For sure. Yeah, like going back to the March of Dimes, the organization. I don't know why this is coming up on my reels or everything else. My reels aren't like probably most people's reels. They're like just filled with business stuff or just fun facts and things. But infertility, I feel like, is at an all-time high in the U.S. And it's interesting. Like they've taken studies of like Amish civilizations, and they have 8 or 9 kids, and they never go to the hospital or whatever. And that's probably how we used to be. But it's interesting with all the things probably in our foods these days, and not probably being outside as much. I feel like it all has effects, and even down to the chemical level. So I don't know. It's I feel like it's more common these days because we are putting a lot more different foreign things in our bodies.
Yeah, for sure. And then you, just to be the devil's advocate, then I often wonder how much of it is because we're better at tracking it. And people have a heightened expectation. Like, if I want to have a baby in 6 months, I should have a baby in 6 months. Versus maybe the Amish are more laid back about it. They're like, hey, it's God's plan.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
When it happens, it happens.
Yeah,
For sure.
it's I call it the Amazon effect on society. We talk about it all the time with my staff. Is we're not Amazon. We can't point, click, and help you get a financial plan together in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You can go ask ChatGPT to give you one, and who knows if it's going to marry with align with you. So we're not under that umbrella. That's a realistic expectation, but unfortunately, the consumer thinks that.
Yeah.
Like they should be able to call and get something done immediately, and when you tell them it's going to take a day or two, they're
Yeah.
and I think that bleeds into a lot of areas of life, is we have this microwave expectation, like, I want it, I should get it.
Yeah, no, next door. And now it's not even Amazon, it's not even always next day, it's sometimes faster. Order something in the morning and be there
Isn't that
by
crazy?
8 p.m.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Next day seems so passe. Like, oh, it's not gonna get here tomorrow at 3.
Yeah.
But at first that was like, oh my God.
I think, I have some friends that live in bigger towns, and most everything they get now is the same day.
Right.
Unless
Order by 10, it's here by 2.
Yeah, which is just crazy.
I don't know the logistics of that. I can't imagine that. How can you have that much stuff in a warehouse?
It's
within
incredible.
distance?
I think what it comes back is they have so much data, like what you're saying before, insurance and data. My theory is they have so much data on what we already bought and what we're going to buy.
But they move it.
They probably, they say they can tap into any phone line, kind of going to my big brother conspiracy government route. They can tap into any phone whenever they want. And these billion-dollar companies, they probably have our whole record of everything we bought and what they think we're going to buy.
Yeah, no doubt they do.
Yeah,
they do.
And so they already have these 10 things that Dan's going to buy in the next 10 months already kind of configured on when they can get it to us.
This is pre-COVID, and that's how I keep track of time. Like, I always think everything was just 2 years ago, and I was like, no, that was longer than that because it was pre-COVID. I was at a business conference, and I chose one of the breakout sessions was with a guy who was in social media, and there were 10 of us at the table, and somebody was talking about Facebook this or that and advertising and how weird it is that you can talk about something and then bing, there it shows up.
Yeah.
And then he said, well, right now I'll tell you that Facebook has looked at all of our phones, and now they're trying to find mutual connections. Like if 2 or 3 of us like to go bowling,
yeah,
it's already drawing that spider web behind, and you'll get a friend request from somebody at this table if there's enough things that connect.
Yeah.
Because they want to build a model. And one of the ladies said, my phone's turned off. He said, doesn't matter. He said, and it happens every time you're in a store, or if you sit down and talk to somebody, and that's years and years ago.
Yeah.
Now, how much of that was based on his supposition, or did he know actually how the algorithms work? But he was like, they know everything about you. They know what you buy, when you buy, how much you pay for it. If you're the kind of guy who shops and tries to save $50, or if you're the kind of guy that just says, psh,
get
run it, buy it, rip the Band-Aid off. More like I do it, yeah. So
that is true. I feel like when you do go to different social events, or you go to the chamber, or you're out with people that you don't see regularly.
All of a sudden they show up on your feed.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I should become friends with X, Y, and Z now.
Yeah.
It's so they know. But,
yeah. My wife does it all the time. She'll do it on purpose. She'll talk about a very particular kind of shoe or purse, and within a half an hour, it's on one of her social media feeds.
Oh yeah.
It's like, you can buy it here. And she's like, she's always listening.
Yeah. We end everything with a speed round, Dan.
All right.
Lightning round. Ask you 3 questions. First one, what's your favorite book or podcast you'd recommend to somebody? Or if you have a couple.
I like to listen to Seth Godin. I get his daily blog.
Okay. Tell me a little. I've never heard about him. Tell me more about him.
So great question. What I like about him is he's very pragmatic. Like, I forget. Today, his blog, it's usually just like 1 or 2 paragraphs, which I think is cool because my attention span, I can read it pretty quick.
Yep.
But his thing today was, if you have a backpack and you're on a hiking trail, you know what's in every pocket, and you know where you keep things and what you put in there and why you brought it along.
Yeah.
But the 6 people that you're hiking with, you don't know anything about their backpack except that they have one. And so he draws the analogy then, basically saying, there's a lot of people going through stuff in life and they look like they're carrying the same thing and they're not. And so it's more like how to be empathetic and understand that there's a lot going on inside that backpack. So it's just a window. He might talk about customer service or things. It's usually a very pithy. He does it 7 days a week.
Wow.
He's a keynote speaker, an author.
Okay.
I've read all of his books. I just find him. He's the kind of guy that when I listen to him, I always stop and like, that's an interesting point.
Interesting.
I'm reading a book right now. It's called Same as It Ever Was. Or the concept is instead of trying to find out what's new, spend your time trying to figure out what stays the same.
Okay.
And there's things in history that are rock solid that will repeat themselves. And once you get really good at that, you don't get pulled off by the whiz bang wow of today. I don't read like stories just for fun. Usually they're business related.
Non-fiction.
Yeah. Mel Robbins, I just had somebody introduce me to a book called Let Them, which was very interesting.
Yeah.
I gave it to all my staff. They all loved it.
Okay.
Another one that was recommended by a professor here at Iowa State is about dining. Look it up real quick. Which I kept waiting for the book to actually make the connections for me, and I was telling everybody at our staff meeting, I was like, I'm just waiting for this guy to make the connections, and somebody said, well, maybe they think you're smart enough to make it on your own. And I guess that's what it was. Setting the Table by Danny Meyer.
Okay.
And the professor said that he's doing it with his seniors right now. It's talking about how to take that hospitality isn't service. We all think it is, but service is a base level. How do you make someone feel seen, heard, and appreciated in all environments? And then, as I was reading it, I was drawing conclusions. And again, that's what my staff wanted, so I got copies for.
So do you do a book review every week, or?
I usually share, and I guess I've always been nervous. My staff always makes fun of me, no matter where I've been and who's on my staff, because I like to share what I'm reading.
Yeah.
Like what I read today will be part of what I want to talk about, and it's pragmatic. It may not be the same thing. I might be talking about AI tomorrow because I'm reading something, but I share it with them. We have a Tuesday staff meeting now. There's always and it's not official, like it's Dan's book club review.
You just bring up something.
Yeah, I'll bring up something, or I'll say, hey, Godin said this morning, and then we'll just chat about it, throw it around, see how that fits into our business model and what we're trying to accomplish. And then it does lead to people saying, maybe I should read that book, which I think is a lost art. I mean, I don't think many people spend, and you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I do a lot of audiobooks when I'm driving and things. So.
I've actually leaned more to those lately than podcasts. I feel like, besides this podcast, a lot of podcasts, they get so brief and they get just like la-di-da, la-di-da. And like, I love how a good Audible book is just straight to the point.
Yeah. Yeah, a good book for me tells stories. It'll take the concept and then put it into a story that I can then relate to and remember. Because a story, an idea will die, but a story remains. So you can take your idea, craft it into a story that's memorable, then it has a chance to be repeated, and only ideas that are repeated ever have a chance to make a difference. And so it's that craft of being able to tell a story that will be repeated. I try to do that. I think that's the magic.
What was that line you just said again? Only ideas that are repeated will
have a chance to make a difference.
Wow. Yeah, that's good.
Because ideas come and go.
Yeah.
Ideas are everywhere. It's the ones that are executed, and they won't be executed unless they're repeated. You have to create a tribe. You have to have people around you that are willing to put their shoulder into it with you. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have that, and you can't make them, most of us are volunteers in life.
Yeah.
So churches, community organizations, everybody depends on people signing up just to be part of the mission.
Yeah. For their tribe, for sure.
Yeah.
What's one underrated skill that's helped you win?
One skill. Probably tenacity. Grit.
What does that look like for Dan?
So I'll go way back, and I it's funny because actually have to leave this off my resume. I was told. So I got a paper route when I was 12 years old.
Okay.
It was a daily paper route back in the old days. Nobody can do this anymore because nobody let their kid out of the house at 3:30 in the morning. But it was 7 days a week. I had 5 days off a year, and so that taught me. I didn't matter if I felt good, if it was raining, if it was snowing. I had to get on my bike. It was about a 1.5, 2 mile bike ride to where I got my papers.
Okay.
And then I would load up my bags and walk, and I would put it in people's doors because I wanted a tip.
Mm-hmm.
I would cross-sell. If I was walking by a house, it would irritate me. So I'd buy extra papers, and I'd put them in there for a week, and then I'd knock on their door and say, would you like to keep getting the paper? So I'm 12 years old. I mean, I was figuring this out. And I think that, I've heard people say that they love to hire people that work at a dairy farm because cows need to be milked 3 times a day. It doesn't matter what you feel like or what the weather is. And I think the paper route was that for me. I had to get up, and then I had to collect every other week and pay my bill. And I had to collect every other week and pay my bill. And it didn't matter if I went to a Sixers game the night before in Philly and I got home at 1 in the morning. I still had to get up at 3:30 and go do my paper route. Then I had a job after work. I still had my paper route. And so that tenacity, I think, is a skill that serves you well over time. It's just not taking no for an answer and not being a jerk about it, but always trying to find a way to win. We have a rule at my office: if you have a problem, you could bring it to me, but bring me 3 possible solutions.
I love that.
Because then it changes their mindset from whining to solutions. And as long as we can figure out a solution, and very often, almost always, the solution isn't fixing the mothership, it's fixing us. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, we can't fix them, but what can we set up locally to mitigate the stress this is causing, and then we find a solution. And so that, again, I think is tenacity. It's not giving up on a problem, it's figuring out a solution to one.
Well, that's why Dan's part of the 1% Better Club. That's why he's here today. Getting better every single day, stacking those wins. I think that's why I love talking with you and love getting to know you even more. So, everyone, thanks for joining into the podcast. Again, thanks to Dan for being here. And we'll see you guys in the next one.